Hello and welcome to another discussion of Initiate's Trial. This is the ninth book in the Wars of Light and Shadow series by Janny Wurts. We've been working our way through the series, 150-ish pages every couple of weeks. Today we're discussing chapters 15 through 18? No,
No,
uh,
not even close.
13 to 15.
No,
10
still not.
No,
10
to
to
12.
12.
10 to 12, damn it. I was trying to reverse engineer from this being the fourth discussion. Nobody give me any math problems to do right after I've woken up, but
Oh my god.
or maybe ever. That's my excuse. um, yeah, so 10 to 12 for Initiate's Trial. And that's it. We will be reading through the end of the book for the next discussion if you're reading along with us. And we'll be going straight on to the next book, Destiny's Conflict, for the fortnight after. So 4 weeks from now, we'll be starting Destiny's Conflict. The next discussion will see us through the end of Initiate's Trial. With me, of course, I've got the wonderful people that we discussed this with. Jared, could you start us off with introductions?
Oh, sure. Jared, the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, Speculation Podcast, and Page Chewing, aficionado, podcaster, etc., etc.
Etc. Etc. Chibi Poe.
Hi, it's me, Chibi Poe again, and I hang out on Page Chewing, and come out here every 2 weeks. And yeah, Chris, go.
Yes, my name's Chris Moore from Chronicle Chris YouTube channel, and you can find me in all the same places as Jared.
Nice. Short and sweet. So, chapter 10 is called Reversals, and there's some. We got every character in this chapter, if I remember correctly. We got Arathon and Terrence. I forgot where we left them at here.
Arathon and
Captured.
yes, Terrans. Yes, they're still captured at this point, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Arathon
that's right,
gets
on the boat.
he gets a little reminder of a previous sea voyage where he had to fight some Ayats and deal with them. And so you kind of wonder, what's he up to now?
Hmm.
Going to Torwent, I think it's called.
Torment is right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
I love how muted his use of the fiends is to accomplish his goals. Like there was that whole build up to it, to how he learned to master the fiends in I forget which book it was. Grand Conspiracy, was it? No, the one after it.
Was
Not
that
when Peril's Gate.
Peril's Gate when he
No,
was on the boat?
he was brought here after Peril's Gate because it was after Keyfor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
That's right. Yeah. So
Traitor's Not.
Traitor's Not.
That's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Traitor's Not. There was a whole sequence where we were told how he learned to master the fiends, and now he's just using it casually. Just another piece of magic he can do. I like that.
Yeah, but he's also doing it without the memory of having to do it, although
That's
he
true.
kind of gets that glimpse of the past real quickly there. So it was interesting seeing that that struggle he's having in his mind about his memory and what brings on these the things he knows how to do, with his initiate training and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
And the fiends helped them all the way through, right? Was it? There are parts in these chapters, specifically with Arathon and stuff he does, that I didn't fully follow what happened. So on the ship, did he use fiends and shadow to put out the lights somehow, or attract the fiends to the light? There was something to do with the light on the ship that I don't fully recall. or didn't fully understand?
That's a good question. Let's see. Yeah, I actually have some question marks in my book here too.
I have no idea.
Yeah. TV Pawani, do you remember what we are talking about? No? Okay.
Let me, even though I can read the paperback, let me look at it on my phone, because it's a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah, but eventually Ascender is talking to Sethvir about this too in that same chapter, and Sethvir is telling him that the landfall will happen south of the border, and Torwent is what he acknowledges, and it's by Arathon's doing that they're going to land there. And is that where the light is gathering as well?
Yeah, the true sect.
Yeah.
True sect
That's
is, yeah.
the true sect, and that's the problem. Is why why risk that confrontation of forces?
Yeah.
Do we know why? Okay, I guess he's headed to Torrent because he needs to go to Halwithwood. He's got a destination in mind, right, Arathon?
It seems he's doing this on purpose, and that was my question: is what is he up to? Like, what? Why does he need to go there specifically? And I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be answered later, or what the deal is there.
And he did do some scrying, right? When he was healing Terrence before, did he do a thing where, or was that before? I forget. At some point, he scried the future. Maybe that's one of the things that's leading him to Torrent. Might be misremembering something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, later on, he does the whole thing where he rescues some people, and I don't know if that's related to why he had to go to Torrent or not. But I was hoping Chibi could answer
that.
Yes, soon as Chibi finds the right passages.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I had another question. So Asandir is in the woods, I think near Halwithwood somewhere, right? And he's making his way. He needs to head it out of there before Arathon shows up, so that nothing he does can be construed as being in help of Arathon, right? So but there is also this problem that the war that is waged would destroy the free wilds, and he cannot help. His hands are tied because of his oath to Celidi. But okay, obviously it is how he says it is, but I feel like intent should matter. He's not trying to help Arathon, he's trying to stop another disaster, and that's why he's there, and that's why he might be helping the people, might be helping like whatever he needs to do. But being anywhere close to Arathon apparently will be, and what would be him breaking the oath, and that means now that there are so many things he can't do and so many things that Celidi can do to take advantage. Like, I like it. That is an interesting setup and constraints for the book, but I'm wondering why intent doesn't matter in this case, like, because they can set pretty intricate bindings, right?
But he can't interfere in anything directly with anything that influences Arathon or involves Arathon. It's not really it. So he can kind of help the three young lads way off there to get there, but he can't be there or be seen to be doing it directly. So if he goes to Torment or interferes in Torment, he's putting himself in the mix, so to speak, regardless of what the bigger outcome is. I mean, that was pretty much part of the compact. I think that Celadie wanted is that the Fellowship would not be able to interfere with Arathon at all.
Right.
Right.
So I see, and because that war is, it's not just that Arathon is in the neighborhood; it's that the war is waged over him. That's what prevents him from doing anything to stop the other damage that can happen with the war.
Yep.
Okay, I guess I can buy that.
Yeah, and plus he also has the impetus to ride for Athili because of the Seth Fair mentions the three children to him, and so he has that impetus to ride towards their direction, which is away from Arathon, even though they're trying to get to Arathon, but they're not too successful yet. So maybe that's the way out of the oath if he's riding to help towards them instead. It doesn't seem like it's a direct intervention into Arathon's affairs.
Yeah, he does put them out somewhere. He says he can't help them get to where Arathon is, but he can help them, period, which I guess is a good workaround.
I mean, that happens later on, towards the end of the third chapter we read. But this Ascendere guy, he takes a lot of oaths, huh? He's like Mr. Oath guy. He's giving him and taking him all over the place.
He's like a lawyer or a judge, isn't he? He makes Arathon promise one, and then he takes one himself, as if we'll find a way around it. He's more like Arathon than you would think, because Arathon sort of does whatever he needs to in the moment, and then Alk will worry about it later, how we get around it.
That's right, yeah.
It's very high dressing of him, I have to say, given that I'm reading that at the moment as well. This is very similar thing.
Justin takes a lot of oaths. I guess I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Promises and is like, people are like, well, how are you going to get out? And he's like, I don't know, but we'll work it out. It'll be fine. So I sort of get a similar vibe with Arathon and with Ascendere to a certain extent as well. Although I will say that Ascendere and Seth Fair seem particularly worried at the moment, rather than that they really don't know where to out of this. They're sort of hoping upon hope that things will work themselves out and that they can improve in other ways, but not as confident for sure.
Yeah, well, they know the sword's been stolen by the kids.
Yeah.
And that sword seems to always mess things up when it comes to knowing the future and scrying and all that stuff. The sword's a wild card kind of, I think. And so, they're worried, rightly so. I was a little worried. The next part, the next section, Deadlock. You must have loved that, Chris, because we got Daliana. Your Evan Stan. Right?
She really grows into these 3 chapters, I think. It's fair to say, she comes to the fore. But yeah.
Well, she manages to talk Lysaea down in this section where Dakar could not. So that was pretty significant, I think, even though later on Lysaea leaves him in the dust and kind of sneaks off.
But doesn't get too far with it before he gets caught up again. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. I thought that was actually kind of funny though that he did that to them.
Yeah. But there was also the thing where a lot of people are gaining sight or initiate ability because of the change in flux from what the dragon did.
Yeah, that was very interesting. The dragons messing with things, the dragon's sheer power of messing with things ends up affecting so many other things.
But especially the clans, because I think what this really leads into is actually leads back to the Coriani and how they managed to get so many initiates essentially at that time, was because these clan people had so many people that were kind of upset by their abilities that they would basically take them off their hands and say, look, no, we look after them, we're a good place for these people. I mean, we investigate that a little more actually in these chapters as well, which I think was quite interesting in terms of their intentions when they were doing that. But it's sort of like has created a new breed of problems for the clanspeople with their latent abilities or otherwise being raised to the floor because of the dragons messing.
Yeah.
A lot of town people are also impacted, right? We find out in a later chapter that there are several people being locked up in the towns that they're traveling through. Lysair and Talia. In fact, I think it was in the next section with Deadlock, where they are locking up a lot of people for going crazy during this flux. What is it? What's happening when rising of the flux? I suppose when all that is happening is that they're gaining the sight and they need to sleep it off and need some maybe healing, and they'll be okay.
Yeah. It's a new era, and this is the era of the dragon affecting thing, I guess. After he, a couple hundred years ago, he destroyed Avenor, and then took a quick nap, a century or so, and
well, we find out when he's eating, he sleeps well.
Yeah, that's right. I thought that was great, actually. I was like, oh yeah, how dragon-like. It makes perfect sense.
He what was I gonna say? So we've been told that all of these people are gaining sight because something has changed in the planet's harmonics because of what the dragon did. Does that mean that some people who had sight no longer have it?
I don't know.
Or do they just need to retune their abilities?
Yeah, I don't know about losing. I don't remember anybody losing any abilities.
Yeah, we haven't seen that. I was just curious if it's something that could happen.
Well, it sort of indicates that the abilities are sort of linked to the planet, and more broadly speaking, rather than sort of just genetics. You know what I mean? It's kind of the harmonics of the planet can affect the amount of the people that get the abilities, etc. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. Yes,
it's very cool, and there's even one mention later on that of the planet itself kind of being aware of this, like it's not just a hunk of rock. There's something more to this planet.
All matter is
yeah.
So like the planet, it probably wouldn't be an awareness like we understand it, but
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not not that kind of, but there was a mention of Athera, and I underlined it somewhere when we get to it, but of Athera, actually, that the continent being aware of something happening, not like Chibi said, not like we would be aware, but still something more than just a rock flying through space.
Yeah. The new question before we move on. The dragon, what do you guys think it wanted to do? Did it just want to heal? Just randomly decide, oh, this land is broken, I need to heal it. I'd like that now. Or do you think it's up to something else?
I think it accomplishes too. I know Asandir, cleared the flux lanes, but the adjustment, to restoring Kethter goes towards, uplifting the entire planet's vibrations, so Paravians can, in theory, thrive again.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
That.
Right. Yeah.
So it wants the Paravians back. Okay.
Sure.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Cool. The next section, there's 3 questions.
Yes.
Alara arrives in
Yes.
Bashir. And then we learn a little bit about the past with this Jessian Oathkeeper, who gave over her life for the virtue of silence, whatever that means.
Who's read
The
Sundering Star?
Sundering Star, yes. I thought I recognized that name as soon as I read it. I was like, oh, she's from that.
What name? Sorry, I haven't read Sundering Star yet.
Jessian Oathkeeper.
Yes, the
is from
predecessor.
Sundering Star. She's from there. Well, from that story. So just a little thing to say, hey, you should read that story.
Yes.
But we got a little bit of history with that, which was cool. And it was funny because Alara asked, who is this? Should I know her? And I don't recognize that name. And that's kind of a little hint to the reader here. Yeah, go find out who she is. And we need to know her. But the historical reckoning, like it spans thousands of years, and the course of ancient events and stuff like that could not be. But we find out that the Coriathane condemned Jessian for treason because she swore those 3 oaths. So she was a member of them, and she was in conflict with her oaths to them. Very similar to what's shaping up to be in the case for Alara. And and it was also mentioned that this happened before our kind and yours set foot on this world. So that was some pretty cool historical stuff going down there. I really liked
talking, it. If we just assume the fellowship lifespan, we're talking 17,000 years or more, longer. Or thereabouts. But there's also the one thing I've wondered about is how long, so we know humans were wandering around for a while in space, is how long they were doing that, because I've always kind of had the theory that there might have been some time dilation or time travel in a play here.
Oh,
whether it's just for the fellowship or for whatnot, because fellowship, could have in theory been yoinked back in time, by the dragons.
Well, we get a little bit about that later on as well, about how the fellowship took ordinary men, or the dragons took ordinary men and made them the fellowship, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, brought them there, and the Second Age, which was quite a while. But also the Jessians, I think Alara is actually in more of a problem than Jessian, because the oaths to the Coriani, at least from what I understood, were different at the time.
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I have no doubt Alara's in a lot of trouble, but
she may be in a lot of trouble, but she's making her own choices, if you know what I mean. She's not being railroaded into what other people want her to do. She has very clear objectives and thoughts about the way she should be, the way her relationship with Arthur should be, and especially about her relationship with the Coriani, which I thought was incredibly interesting, especially when it comes down to her crystal. What happens to her crystal, which we have been told before has a mind of its own and has wanted to stay with the Coriani as well. I mean, there are certain things that are getting set up and getting teased. Not that I have a ballish notion about what it could mean, but you sort of have these little bits that they tease and kind of say, "Oh, you remember about the crystal?"
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. I am curious what the crystal's end game is, though. What does it want?
I know.
Why does it like being with the Coriani? I hope it turns out like that eventually, that it did it for something that will make nice things happen for Ilera, not not a random free will thing. Although I guess it doesn't matter if that is the case. That would still be interesting. But
Yeah. That whole free will thing on this planet
Yeah.
is really a constantly evolving conundrum
Yeah.
about what's people can do free will, and when it gets taken over, and when it keeps coming up, and it's a wonderful exploration of that whole theme going out throughout this whole series, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was a hint in this chapter, which I think we basically saw later come to fruition, that the Koreathane practiced necromancy,
Mhm.
Yes.
and then later Setvi tells us that what she's doing right now is necromancy.
Oh, awful.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not surprised though.
Not
Mm.
surprised, but man, she's
In-
so bad.
In fact, you think I thought Celidi proper is alive in some form inside her body, but I'm wondering now if that's some other necromantic practice that she killed Celidi and she transferred herself. So there's two forms of necromancy left that need to be vanquished. At least one of them is practiced by the Koreathane,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
I kind of hope that Celody is not still alive. 'cause
Yeah, that would suck for her.
that's torturous.
That is worse than what Lorenda has been dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Sorry, today's the day I bring lots of questions. This, when Ilera is told by, I guess, the crone that her mindful action at Etir spun the first thread for Prince Arathon's bid to regain his freedom. Isn't this so? Okay, I think I'm starting to understand the answer to my question, but I'll ask it anyway because I was confused about this. So she, whatever happened at Aether is what led to Arathon being captured in the first place, right? So
Yeah.
what she did here, then I think she was talking about. I guess Ilera was taking on some of the blame for Arathon's capture, and the crone was telling her, no, you actually helped him be released. But then, if she hadn't participated in that ritual, I guess that ritual had to happen whether she participated or not. And because she did, he at least had a way out of it. So it was really what Dakar did, that whatever it was, that led to his capture, right?
Yeah, well, we find out where it was as well. We find out some details. We found out that it's Jensen's wedding, and
Yes.
stuff that had happened, and then she was betrayed basically by one of his own people. Then at that stage, so he came to play some tunes, some bangers, as we would say, for the wedding, and he never got past Summer of '69 by Brian Adams. So.
Oh, you got to that part. So yeah, I can cover that. Yeah, one of the one of the Rathane's clans folk gave away knowledge of where Erethan would be arriving.
Yeah, So the Koreathane had knowledge.
They were waiting for him when he came out of the lane shift, and
very cool.
Kind of felt at him, and then there was a whole thing, and then when the Fellowship went to intervene, Dakar's oath and stuff was brought into it, and and then the Fellowship went with extreme measures to make sure that they couldn't kill Erethan.
Mm-hmm.
That was 6-7 years after Stone Fortress, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. But what even allowed his capture was Dakar's binding of the not fellowship, Rathain's crown to the Koryathain, right? Isn't that what Asandi yells at him about at the beginning of this book?
Well, they used it as a pretext for casting Dakar off.
Right, but is it true?
You can't see, but I'm just kind of waving my hand.
So they blame him then, but are they placing a false accusation on his shoulders, or did that actually happen?
Sort of. I mean, they're like, I'd have to ask. We'd have to ask Janny to remember, because I can't remember exactly how that part involved. But I just know that it would have still been a problem, but the oath sworn to the crown of Rathain, made it more of a problem, I think.
Okay.
The way it goes, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Well, we find out some of Alera's true names.
Yeah.
Like Apienia, and I found that interesting that these Baidar, they just seem to know things.
Yeah.
And there was one mention of she mentioned something that happened like 900 years ago, but then she specifically said to Alera, as your people measure time. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a little like Chibi mentioned earlier, something about time, and so there's a little hint of it there too. Yeah. So
that's a child prophecy.
Yeah, I really liked that her interaction with the Baidar and stuff, and it was
it's really
it was very cool.
Yeah.
And she's given a dagger now, right? The magic dagger.
So the magic dagger that I was joking about this on Friday, it was as the Mother Dark or whatever you call her says, like, I could tell you what to do, but I'm going to give you a quest to Seth here so he can tell you what to do with the dagger. A very D&D style, as we were talking about. We can tell you now, but let's move it along.
Yeah. Well, they tell us she's tasked to put right the consequence of Jessian's unintentional legacy.
Yeah.
And they say, and they tell her, the purpose behind the blade shaping one day will make itself known to you. So this blade seems to have its own sentience, basically, just like some other crystals and stones and everything.
Like Alethea and yeah.
So that's cool.
So the other thing that was interesting about the sort of reveal that the Koryani practice necromancy is Arathon's destined to destroy all the practice of necromancy. Is that why she's so terrified of Arathon? Is that the unrelenting threat that will kill Koryani's succession? That's why Celid's out to get him?
Well, we still tie back to, and I know it's still got to be probably somewhere in the back of her head, the scrying she did that said, Arathon would, destroy the Prime Matriarch. So,
yeah, I'm wondering why that is. Why she would destroy? Why he would be the source of destruction? I was wondering if this is it.
I think it's a bit of the like the prophecy. You get the prophecy where it's like, if you turn left, you will destroy a great kingdom, kind of thing. Only it doesn't tell you that, the kingdom you'll end up destroying is your own. So I think it's kind of a self-fulfilling that, she had this prophecy and she's like, well, I must destroy Arathon before he destroys me.
And we also realize that Celid's a bit of a, let's say, selfish and kind of narcissist, so the idea of her dying and that the Coriolis will be able to continue without her is sort of far under her head. So, yeah.
But I think it's too. It's just she's kind of doing the, making this happen because she decided that Aerithon had to die.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the classic villain fallacy.
Yeah.
That oh no, I have a prophecy. This guy is going to destroy me, so I'll go out and take him prisoner for 200 and something years, and make him, make
for stalking him before that, and it's like,
and do all this other stuff to
left him
thwart
alone.
him. Right. So now she's basically made him want to destroy her because of all her own actions. So
That's fair, but I'm not entirely sure that would be what applies in this case, because she got there from scrying, and scrying means looking at a series of events that lead to a particular outcome, right? And she probably saw several or all that led to him being the source of destruction. So there must be a series of events that seems inevitable that would lead to her destruction. So she must know what brings it about, not just that he causes
Kind of.
destruction.
We know she did that in Warhost. She saw Lorinda, cheating, breaking her oaths, and getting, kissed by Aerithon. So she saw the scene in Grand Conspiracy, and then it just unreeled right after that into, her foreseeing her own death. But we didn't get any of the context around it beyond, that Aerithon would be involved and the Waystone itself.
Right. So we didn't get any context, but she must have context. Anyway, yeah.
But it does seem to me kind of that she's just, she got this, that, I see I can potentially die, somehow involving Aerithon, and I don't like that, so he's got to die. Because then she immediately went to use Branzian, the eldest Sabridian brother, to try and kill him, and that didn't work. And then she tried other stuff,
which also didn't work. Okay. So, all right. I guess we can. Are we still on the first chapter?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Thankfully, it's the to me it's the most plot development kind of chapter we have of the three.
I found it a fascinating chapter. So it was pretty cool. So next chapter, right? Upheaval. We get Aerithon finding out about Jarrett's new connection here with Terrans. And they're being hauled.
And he's not happy about it either, which I think is interesting. That went two ways. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He wasn't that excited to see his old friend in one way or another. And they're being hauled around as criminals, while this is happening. So, jeez. Then we get the introduction of the Hatchet guy. What do you guys think about this guy?
He was fun. I liked Aerithon's imitation of him more than I liked the guy.
Yeah. It was definitely an over the top character that guess made it easier for Aerithon to imitate him, because when you have somebody that bombastic, you can put on the airs, so to speak.
Yeah. I like how the temple diviners, they were probing to see whether he's had some bad magic done on him, but they can't find anything. So the shadow, I guess shadow is free from scrying of this sort or probing of this sort.
Yeah, that was interesting. I wonder why that they didn't immediately go, oh, this guy's working for the shadow. Yeah, that's interesting. Did they do a full scan? Did they get the chance? I don't remember if.
Yeah, I think there was some true sect guy who was probing him. He wasn't happy with the decisions that quote unquote Hatchet was making about turning the war host back. And, and so he wanted to make sure that he's not being subjugated by some black magic, so to speak. That's not the term that's used in the book, but
Yeah.
And he finds nothing. He doesn't find anything, so he has to listen to Hatchet.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that was fun. It was a kind of a fun chapter because Arathon, he's convincingly getting poses as the Hatchet, but the main crux of it is he ends up saving a bunch of women and children from being slaughtered, and so that was very heroic and very it was nice to read about, really.
Yeah, I like that. I liked Arathon's deflections in this, and I think that's what I'm most curious to see. I don't know. I guess there's already been quite a bit of killing and destruction in this war, but Sedgwick's casting of the strands apparently tells us that the worst is yet to come, and I'm very curious to see if Arathon can deflect all of that. I like the conversation he had with Terrence where he's like, I'm not going to kill and I'm not going to let you kill on my behalf either.
Mhm.
Please stop. I'm not going to do this. Jared can take a hike.
Which is kind of funny because we've always cheered for Jarrett all the time, throughout this whole series. And then he comes back in one way and Arathon's telling him to take a hike.
He's
funny.
dead. I need him to stop influencing my decisions.
Look, you're dead. Stay dead.
Stop it. So yeah, I like that exchange and that he's actually successful this time. I think and in the first few books it's like he's stopping his hand from wielding the sword, and like he's just got to do it anyway, but now he has so many
Right.
other means at his disposal that I think he might actually succeed, and I'd like to see him succeed.
Yeah, that was cool. Yep. And then in the next section we got the S-Vand, the kid, is having his visions, and he which kind of puts a hampering on them moving around and getting away or what have you. But somebody mentioned to him, Kadrian, his friend, told him, steer clear of entanglement with the halo of light that bounds Athili, which I imagine is a reference to the divine on this world and how
specific place on the map.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
We actually end up near or in Athili at the end of the chapter, the 12th chapter, right?
But
that's where these kids end up wandering. Apparently, that's where the Paravians were brought into this world from.
Yeah, right. And so, but it must be named after Ath, the creator.
Yeah,
this
I
place,
think so.
right?
Yeah.
So that was very interesting line there. I like that.
Yeah. And they talk about being too close to the rim, and they can't survive if they get into the rim. We haven't got to that part yet, so we'll talk about it then. But
yeah,
yeah,
right. And but this is when the kids, we find out through the kids, is when Arathon fell to Coriani captivity on the hour he set foot in Howth Wood to play this labyrinth for the nuptial celebrations of Gensha. It was interesting that the kids knew this history. Like this has been passed down. This has been I don't know if it's a point of shame for the clans that happened on their watch, but it's definitely something hammered home that would have been orally passed down to to these guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's a, there's a section named first deflections, then second deflections. I guess first deflections was Arathon becoming Hatchet and leaving, and then
Well, second deflections was Arathon becoming the Hatchet.
okay.
The first one was the first deflections was all the kids, and it must have been them. I'm not sure what their actual deflection was, other than to have a their scrying.
Yeah, well, they were changed direction, didn't they? So
Yeah, they were just avoiding, people hunting them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we come to a chapter called Bind, which the next chapter is called Double Bind.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't mean that Celery starts using 2 women at a time instead of 1 to clean up the waste. Oh man, what
I never wanted anyone in a novel to die more than her.
Yes. Every time I think that she can't do worse than this. Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it was. 427. Yeah, it was on page 427 where when the dragon's wings lifted in flight, the sonorous cry of Athera herself struck a dissonant note through this earth-linked awareness. And I was like, oh, wow. That's like the actual continent is referred to as a female, and it's actually crying out in some manner. And I was like, oh, that's quite interesting.
Nice. I like. Oh, and the thing Davian did with the Waystone, I think that time that Celedi's hands got burnt, that apparently destroyed a binding they had placed on the Waystone that would prevent Celedi from using it to destroy the planet. But now she can, because that binding no longer exists. So that's interesting. More power for Celedi.
Yeah. Yeah, it was yeah, and it was heartbreaking that Sethvir could look on this necromantic ritual, but he couldn't do anything about it. Like, I was just like, oh man, that whole scene was just like horrifying, just and what's her name had to look on too, or had to do it, Lorenda. Yeah, the former hot mess that we now feel bad for. And,
well, but Sethvir was able to use her feelings with which to sort of piggyback on, her contempt for everything that's going on. And I think it's really interesting how, as the books went on, the Coriani, I mean, Celedi's always been like this, but it's been painted more clearly about how twisted and evil and kind of against the natural run of things that she is leading the Coriani on. Like the sacrificing of these kids, these women, for her end, just as an expendable resource. Just that bit really was tough.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and she can keep. She's like, yeah, we'll get more of them because people will be afraid that they'll come kill their children. So we can use up what we have. Which, wow, the cold-bloodedness there, and
using people's fear with which to harvest their children. It's horrifying in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot in this section of that. Just like I was grinding my teeth.
Yeah. I have no words. I don't know if we're headed towards any sort of redemption for her or any sort of explanation for why she's doing what she is, but I don't I don't see how she can recover from whatever this is. But
We just want, like, Celadine doesn't have any redemption. Lorenda is the one who can have the redemption here. Like, she's the one that can do the right thing, even though, I mean, again, it was told that she was humiliated by Arathon, and that Arathon used her attraction and all that kind of stuff against her, you know, all that kind of stuff. Not Arathon's greatest moment, that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But you know, again, that's restated as often happens in the book before.
Yeah,
Ahead.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess maybe this is something for Lorenda too, and she is sort of, at least in this book, waking up and not. It's also interesting to me that, and I think Janny has talked about this before, that if people involved in a war, if all the soldiers have to do is put down their arms and refuse to fight, right? If so I feel like that applies to the Koreatain also. All the women who are doing their prime's bidding, sure, they have tied they have oaths tied to the waystone or the other thing where they can become blithering idiots, if they are I guess if they are under trial for breaking the oath. But if they all decide together that we don't want to do this, what chance does Celody have, right? But they are complying because reasons. So
well, they're afraid for their lives, but again, this idea that the Koreatin women have a dual life, essentially. They have their own life, and then they have the life in the crystal, and the two of them are linked. But again, that thing in the crystal, or that life in the crystal, is its own entity as well. So, you know, again, that idea that you've just sort of presented about them refusing actually means that the crystals refuse, and I'm actually sure that those crystals kind of combine and will have will be a very powerful thing that Celedy maybe isn't afraid of, and quite possibly Celedy knows something that she doesn't tell anybody else about these crystals, etc.
Right, because she has levels of knowledge beyond them.
And it doesn't it comes up in like her thoughts at some point. Maybe we haven't got to it yet, but it is implied at least once that there does seem to be some kind of, you know, because the important thing is, you know, Celody's on top, you know, of the Coriani pyramid, as it were, but she's still a Coriani sister, as bound by oath as all the rest of them. So it does seem, you know, at least from what I've been able to tell, that there is some kind of process that the Coriani beneath her could instigate if they were aware. You know.
Yeah.
You know, and she would have no choice but to, you know, to go along with it. But
but the only one who is even close to her level of knowledge of magic is Lorenda, and Lorenda's a, you know, bubbling servant, husk of a person right now.
She makes sure that the, you know, and everyone else is cowed, but
and it's more than just a fear of death. It's that fear of worse than death, you know, becoming basically a Lorenda and lacking any kind of free will whatsoever is even, I think, scarier. And that's scares the hell out of me, I'll tell you that much.
Not having control of, well, we should read The Forgotten Biesterfeld, but there's the choice between losing control of your limbs and losing control of your mind, which I guess Lorenda at least has her mind left to her own devices. So, but
so quite a wait. That was a powerful section, a very powerful read there. So answer me this. Did Dakar and Daliana become bound with the dragon? Is that the binding we're talking about here?
Oh, I thought the binding was whatever she did with the whatever Celery did with the initiate to the Waystone, but I could be way off.
Well, that could be both. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it
could
could
be
be
both.
both. Yeah, actually, I think these titles tend to apply to a lot of situations in the chapters. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, well, I was going to say this happens quite a lot, and in this book especially, it feels like we jump around within chapters much more than we have in the previous books, because it tended to be that each chapter was self-contained in some way, in terms of like this is an Arathon chapter or otherwise. In this one, we bounce between Fellowship and Arathon, and there's a lot of duality happening a lot of the way through this book, which is obviously interesting. But yeah. It sort of intimated that the dragon was going to swallow them, but I think in general it was just bind with a spirit, so they could travel quickly.
Yeah, well, because it had that similar moat thing going on, like a moat of light or whatever, and that tumbling and spinning and plummeting through the golden slit eye, that dragon eye thing that we saw with Davian previously, and Daliana accepted the offer right off the bat, and Dakar had to kind of grumble, and so it was just I don't know what's going to come of that.
I guess they weren't quite bound to the dragon per se. At least I didn't get that impression. I think what happened was how quantum teleportation is typically described. They were unmade and then they were made elsewhere, disassembled and reassembled to go somewhere else. But they went to separate destinations. I guess Daliana ended up where Lysair was, and Dakar ended up where? Somewhere near Arathon. Right now he's forced to confront.
He was exalted to the wild.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but
it was one of the woods that
he recognized the pillars of upright marble that mark the 4 cardinal points at Fiaduin, the Paravian site on the north bank of the river that flowed out of Lithmarin on the northern verge of Carathweir. So,
okay,
he's somewhere else. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, he's somewhere. We'll find out what the dragon was hoping he would do at that point. Or actually what he wanted to do, because they had to hold intention of where they wanted to end up, that the dragon would hopefully act on when transferring them. So whatever it is, Dakar wanted, consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, he's in Havish, south of Torwent.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
So that next section, derogation, whatever that's called. Daliana's back with Lysaia.
Yes, this was my favorite section.
It was pretty cool because it was. I really love the complexity of Lysaia's relationship with both Daliana, but also with the people in general. Nothing's like black and white and cut and dried. It was really cool how complex it was. I just I really enjoyed reading this section.
Well, it was especially revealing about Lysair's relationship with women, just in general. It's sort of intimated that it stems from his mum. His relationship with women was broken even before he got together with Talith in some way, which sort of indicates that because of his mum, because that's the only other female that was in his life, and then everything that he's done was shun that, and was really complex development of his character so late on in the series. But how Daliana was allowed to force the Talith thing on him again and again and again to kind of get it out of him. So interesting.
Yeah.
I got a little mad at him for blaming the death of his war host on her, though. Like, not quite blaming. It's a little bit like the face that launched 1,000 ships business, because she begged him not to go to war, and he did anyway.
Yeah, I like the the swaggering cluster of adventurers begging to sign on with him.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. And I like when Daliana yells at the woman, like, just because he's blonde, you think he's the avatar of the light. Just get off. We just want to rule.
Yeah. Very cool.
I do think it's part of, again, this intent from Janny to rebuild the reader's relationship with Lysair, to create a bit of understanding for everything that he did beforehand outside of the curse, because again, this talk about how his trauma basically made him embrace the curse in a lot of ways and be at one with it and kind of revel in it. I think was very again, very effective.
Yeah. That bit was heartbreaking when she asks him, how many times were you assaulted today? And he says, I didn't know, it came in batches. It's just
always
constant, right?
It's constant. Yeah. Yep. Very cool. And then finally, the next section, the sword is drawn.
Yes. poor how do you say her name? Cialanda? I'm mixing up a name from Ciantra. Jeez. I mixed up Cialanda and Ciantra.
Ciantra, yeah.
Ciantra goes blind-ish temporarily.
Yeah.
I would never have guessed that the person walking out of the light was Asandir. Never.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that.
Yeah. How tall he was described to be. I was so sure it would be some kind of centaur or something. And then it turned out to be Asandir. And then he says, even some of the, I forget the word he uses, but the Paravians, the stronger of them, they wouldn't have been able to handle it. But he's here. Not only is he here, he's protecting children from the negative effects of the ethylene flux thing, which is really cool. And I thought I knew everything about how powerful these sorcerers were, and then I still get new insights.
Yeah, but we did know he was heading in this direction from chapter 10. Yeah. He told Sethvir that he was coming this way. So we should have known.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was still cool just to, like you said, he suppressed the effect so that these kids could carry on with their mission. He gave them the free choice. And then of course he takes some oaths. That's what he does. and on we go,
Wait, what's the oath that he took? I might have missed that.
He from them he took some kind of oath.
Your word as given,
Your word as given, yeah.
How Dakar back in ships, promised to do a thing and then tried to welch on it, and Dakar's and Asandir's like, no, you told me you would. Now you're going to do it, and I'm going to make all your food suck until you do.
Got it. Oh, yeah. That's what you meant, taking a lot of oaths, because he made Arathon do an oath, and I guess these kids do an oath.
Yeah, and he mentions, he says, free choice is yours within limits.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, within limits, okay. So there's that's an interesting question again. How much free will is free will, and how much is allowed.
Free to do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't, imperil the survival of Paravians and the upkeep of the world.
Yeah.
So
Salady, I guess it goes back a little bit to that time when Lyrenda is sent to fetch the Waystone, and Sethvir is like, yeah, all you had to do was ask. And I wonder what Salady could get from the Fellowship. I mean, obviously she can't get what she actually wants, I guess, because they are forbidden from building technology on this planet. But I wonder if she just asked for some things, if she would get them. But
I'd be afraid what she'd be asking for.
that's true. Like, help me destroy the free wilds. Okay. Are we almost done? Anything interesting in the news items at the end of this?
Probably.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Celody crowing again, saying we must break,
jeez.
doing that similar thing. And Davian arguing with the dragon again. And the Mad Prophet scrying.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's that. We will finish the book for the next discussion.
Yeah.
And start Destiny's conflict. So close.
Yeah.
I love this cover. I like the purples in it and stuff.
Oh
like that.
yeah.
Really
And is that the raven? Is that Trade's raven?
Looks kind of like a vulture,
Well,
actually.
I was going to say an eagle, like Davian. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, he hasn't taken his eagle form recently.
Well, he's been sort of bonded with the dragon.
With the dragon.
He's upgraded.
Maybe he'll eat some horses and take a nap, and then Davian will be free to do his thing again. All right, then we'll see everybody 2 weeks with the next set of chapters, which will bring us to the end of Initiate's trial. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.